The Periventura family wine estates serve as a beacon of excellence among Spanish sparkling wines. The modern winery, established in 1991, builds upon a legacy dating back to the late 1800s, when their great-great-grandfather pioneered the production of sparkling wine using the Champagne method. From France to Catalonia, successive generations have refined the company's terroir-driven high-end cavas. Today, under the stewardship of fifth-generation Periventura Juve, one of Spain's most innovative producers remains rooted in tradition and driven by innovation, crafting cava with soul, heritage, and purpose.
Hello, Perry. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us today on Gismondi on Wine. We're pretty excited to talk a little bit about sparkling wine, and in your case, cava in Spain. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Anthony. It's a pleasure to meet you, and of course to give visibility to both our region, the Penedès, and the wines that we elaborate in Periventura, our sparklings.
Well, listen, you represent the fifth generation of the family. Your family, you're deeply rooted in cava. How about sharing a bit of the family winemaking story for our listeners before we get started?
Absolutely. It's a great story to tell because, the bubbles and the sparkling wine kind of business started in 1705, more or less, with this monk in France, Dom Perignon, that started to make some assemblages with local varieties and dominate some bubbles that were taken as a mistake in the past. And 200 years later, more or less, in 1872, there was a great man in Spain, in Catalonia, in Sant Sadurní, called Josep Raventós, that was the owner of a big winery called Codorniu. And he was so excited of these bubbles that he wanted to import the method and use the local varieties from the Penedès region in order to elaborate our own sparkling wines. No? So our family, the Periventura family, was at that time the workers at Codorniu. So my great-great-grandfather was at the really inception of the Spanish sparkling wines in Catalonia, in Sant Sadurní. And then, of course, a lot of generations, I'm the fifth generation of the family that has been involved in the sparkling wine sector in Spain. So we have a huge history. Our second generation was a man that worked in the Champagne region, in a prestigious maison at that time that was Champagne Mercier, and was a worker also in Codorniu as chef de caves. And then, of course, the third and generation also worked in the industry. And then, of course, my father in 1991, he decided to embark on his own project, given Periventura the name of the winery. And 34 years later, we are here with the fifth generation, which is me, joining the boat, joining the family project.
The Penedès region, you mentioned that it's the heart of cava, but you're in Sant Sadurní d'Anoia. What can you tell us about this area? How would you describe the character of your vineyards, and what makes that spot so unique?
So, of course, Sant Sadurní is the very place where cava birth was made, no? But And Sant Sadurní is a unique place, is a unique town. But we, as Periventura, we find Penedès as a great and very rich region. No? It is not very big because it's just around 30,000 hectares of land. But when we think about elaborating our sparkling wines, we do not only think about Sant Sadurní, because owning a winery and owning a land in Sant Sadurní, it doesn't give you the permission to say that you can elaborate the best sparkling wines over there. No? And here we have in Periventura made, let's say, a humble exercise of knowing that because we buy a piece of land, it doesn't mean that we will get the best sparkling wines there. And the terroir and the soils of Penedès are very different. Each variety can express themselves in very different ways, depending on where it's grown within Penedès. And the exercise that we have done is just, in the last 15 years, see where or which variety expresses itself the best in each part of where in the Penedès region, no? And by the time we have found these unique soils, unique vines, hidden vineyards within the Penedès region, we have gone there and we take the grapes from those vineyards. So here it's not that we think that in Sant Sadurní you can elaborate the highest sparkling wines of the world, but in the Penedès region, no, there are some specific places that gives this uniqueness to our region.
Okay, that's a great response. I want to add to that because, you know, the issue for us or for many consumers in North America is Cava has always been about affordability. That's the way it was, you know, it was given to us that these wines are great value wines. But what does Cava mean to you, and how should consumers think about the modern day Cava?
Let's say, Anthony, that the appellation of origin Cava, it has been a great success during a lot of years, but of course we also have made our own mistakes, let's say. And the appellation of origin Cava in the last decades, there has been some, let's say, not that good decisions that allowed the region where you can elaborate Cava be expanded throughout all of Spain, no? Which is good for a lot of producers, but of course it goes in contrary to this really sense of origin. However, 90% of the grapes that are used to elaborate Cava, they still come from the Penedès region. And we have 250 wineries belonging to the Cava appellation. So we really feel that Penedès is still the place that really defines Cava. And for me, Cava, if things are done really well, it has like an immense potential to be the best to really elaborate the best sparkling wines of the world. No, the only thing is that we have to take things very seriously and of course make a bet for quality, because we really have the raw materials and the necessary climate to elaborate very high-end sparkling wines.
You know, reading about your history, your father had the idea that quality was really the only way to go. He was very focused on trying to raise the quality of the wine from the beginning, which is quite admirable. Well, let's talk a little bit about the viticulture, because without great vines and grapes, you can't really make a quality sparkling wine. How do you approach the farming? Let's talk a little bit about the organic principles that you're applying and how you're working with the vines.
Yes, absolutely. We have to bear in mind that we need to have a starting point of respect for the vineyard, and for us this is very important. So in our cellar we only use ecological practices, let's say, in the vineyard, no. So we don't use any pesticides, neither herbicides. We only use sulfur and copper, which are at the end of the day elements that we can find naturally in the world. And this has a counter effect, no? Because on the one hand you are treating the plant very carefully, but on the other hand the efforts that you have to make in order to maintain this plant healthy are much higher, no? Because when you use some kinds of chemicals, of course, the effects of these chemicals will last longer in the plant, so you won't have to work the plant that much. But on the other hand, all the soils will be kind of contaminated, no, with these chemicals, which is not good, of course, for the plant. So we will put a lot of effort in order to work with ecological farming. So 100% of Pereventura is ecological farming, but at the end of the day is what the plant needs to really get or provide us the best grapes possible.
The other side of that coin is the consumer as well. The new consumer, the young consumer, everybody's concerned about the planet, the globe, and talks a lot about sustainability. Sparkling wine comes in a big bottle. It's usually always heavy. What sort of things are you doing at Pereventura to address sustainability and to perhaps reduce your footprint as you go along?
with sustainability, we don't like to put a lot of medals in our T-shirt with sustainability practices, because we have them by concept, which means that, for example, instead of building a cellar, everything in the surface, where you need a lot of electricity, where you need a lot of energy to cool all the tanks down, to cool all the grapes down when they come to the cellar, and all the practices within the aging galleries or the production area, we have 90% of our cellar underground. So in the first place, if the concept is taken in advance of sustainability practices, we don't need that many things afterwards to be sustainable. But we are as well, because when we talk about sustainability, we don't only talk about environmental sustainability, we talk about territory sustainability. That's why we had in our vineyards more than 30 electricity towers that we just put them underground to make the environment and to make the landscape more eye-catchy and more friendly, more natural, no, at the end of the day. And this doesn't give us any money, but we do it because we feel like this. And on the other hand, we are just building, let's say, a recycling water plant to really recycle 100% of the water that is used in Pere Ventura in all the production processes in every area of the cellar. So on the one hand, we have this mindset of sustainability beforehand, but of course, afterwards, if we have to imply and we have to apply some actions to be more sustainable, we also do. But when we talk about sustainability, we talk about territory sustainability, we talk about environmental sustainability, and of course, we talk about social sustainability, because at the end of the day, Penedès is a house of many people, and we work with 89 wine growers, a community of 89 wine growers that has been created by Pere Ventura, where we do long-term contracts with these families, and we try to really take care of them, of all the plots, the small plots that they have in their lands. And at the end of the day, sustainability for us is an holistic thing. No, it's not just one or two actions that you can do day by day.
We're going to have to get to the wines, otherwise we will run out of time. But before that, let's start with the grape varieties, because there's a mix of what we would call traditional Spanish varieties, some internationals, although I think they've been there so long, maybe we don't need to call them that. But what are you working with? Can you give us a little background on the grapes?
Yes, absolutely. You were saying it very right, Anthony. Here in Penedès, we have our local varieties, which are mainly Xarel·lo, Macabeu, and Parellada. And they are the base. They are really the base to elaborate most of our sparkling wines in Pere Ventura. But on the other hand, I think we can be open enough to know that some international varieties can also adapt very well to very specific regions of Penedès, not everywhere in Penedès. So on the one hand, we are using traditional varieties, such as this Xarel·lo, Macabeu, Parellada, which are white grape varieties. Another local varieties, but red local varieties, such as Trepat. And then, of course, international varieties such as Chardonnays and Pinot Noir. But if you are using these grapes to elaborate your sparkling wines, you really need to find where in the Penedès region can they really grow and express themselves very well. If not, it doesn't make any sense to grow these kind of varieties if you don't really have the microclimate for them to express.
Okay, we're going to talk about three wines today that we're seeing now in Canada. It's starting to spread across the country. In British Columbia, I think we're going to have all of these wines in the marketplace, but you will find them in Ontario and in Quebec and in some other provinces. So I thought it would be fun to talk about these three. And let's start with the Premier Reserva Brut, non-vintage.
Premier Reserva Brut is what we would call the traditional cava or the traditional sparkling wine from the Penedès region, which is a blend of Xarel·lo, Macabeu, and Parellada. And the Xarelos and Macabeus are harvested from the really low and central parts of the Penedès region, whilst the Parellada is harvested from the really highest parts of the Penedès region at 700 meters above sea level, all harvested by hand, because Pere Ventura is very clear in its principles, and everything that is labeled as Pere Ventura is going to be extreme pruning, harvested by hand, and by the time it comes to the cellar, we will do a cooling of the grapes during 24 hours before getting into our cocar presses, where we will also do a juice separation. And out of the 67% of extraction that the appellation of origin Cava allows us to take, we will only take a 52% of that, which is the cuvée, it's called. So on the one hand, we are very extreme in the vineyards because we do extreme pruning in order to get less yields that we would get otherwise, of what we are permitted. In fact, we take only half of the permitted yields during harvest. And then, of course, by the time we get into the cellar, it gets thinner and thinner. So out of 3 bottles that any Cava producer would get, Pere Ventura only gets 1 out of these 3.
Mm-hmm. Good planning by your father. What can you tell us about these 3 varieties? So let's just say that the wine that your father was making in the mid-70s, is the blend the same? Is it more Xarel·lo now, or how has that evolved over the last 25, 50 years?
Look, like the typical blend, it's somehow kept similar in some sense, because you always have a good base of Xarelos and Macabeus, because Xarel·lo gives a lot of structure and aging potential as well. The Macabeus will give you a volume in the mouth. And then, our winemakers, they always say that the Parellada, which is this maybe 20% that you add at the in the final blend, is the final touch. Is the spirit of the sparkling wine. But the blends themselves, they haven't changed that much. What we have already done is this exercise during these last 15 years to really identify different qualities in regarding plots. How are they evolving over time? How are the soils composed? How is their really microclimate? The age of the vines, etc., etc. And this gives us, on the one hand, a lot of data, which at the end of the day, making wine, it's like being an artist, because it's not that much about data, but data really helps you to drive you in this journey to elaborate a sparkling wine. So let's say that the blends haven't changed that much, but the plots where we source these grapes, they have been very, very properly identified.
Good answer, thank you. The Clos Amador Reserva Brut, another non-vintage. This is a completely different ball of wax, as we say.
You will see, Anthony, now which is the richest of the Penedès region, because the grapes are very, very, very similar. It's a blend of Xarel·lo, Macabeu, and Parellada, but they are harvested in other plots within the Penedès region. And look how these different grapes, being the same grapes, but being harvested in different places or different regions or different micro areas within the Penedès region, you can get so different sparkling wine in this sense. But at the end of the day, it's the process is exactly the same. Let's say with Primer, with our Reserva Brut. And in fact, Reserva Brut is from 2020 that we started introducing it in Canada. I think it's nationwide now that we have our Reserva Brut. But with Clos Amador, you see, how different the wine how is expressing the wine differently from our Reserva, Pere Ventura Reserva. But the grapes at the end of the day, they are the same. So it's how we really express the richness of Penedès.
We didn't mention it earlier, but obviously acidity is a big part of what makes sparkling wine great, whether it's champagne or great international sparkling wine. Climate change is real. Places are warming up, and a lot of people are either moving, seeking. It sounds like you're looking for terroir, but are you looking for cooler spots too in the Penedès or higher up?
You are so right. In fact, in the last years, these plot selections that we have made are really driven by this change of temperatures and where each variety can develop itself the best. No, so on the one hand, we have the Xarelos and the Macabeos. They are suffering in some way, but they are also very like they are taking the shot they are taking the punch very well of the climate change, because they are suffering, but they are good quality, so we are very happy with them. But some other grapes, such as maybe international grapes, we're talking about Chardonnays, we're talking about Pinot Noirs, we are really looking for these super high altitudes within the Penedès region that will give us this acidity needed in order to get the exceptional sparkling wines that you can get out of a Chardonnay of Pinot Noir, for example.
Let's talk about the Grand Vintage. It's a fantastic package, which is great, but of course the wine is better than the package, which is more important as well. Tell us about this. How does this wine sort of embody or speak to the family vision in wine?
Look, Anthony, at the end of the day, for us, the Grand Vintage is a tribute, a really pays tribute to the family knowledge of 5 generations. And here, we really want to make the best of the best. So with our Grand Vintage, we are talking about 5 micro parcels. 2 of them are almost 100 years old. And to become a Cava de Paraje Calificado, which is like the highest, let's say, distinction that you can have in the appellation of origin Cava, you really need to go through some requirements, no? And requirements about the soil, requirements about the age of the vines, requirements about the yields that you can get, and so on and so forth. No? So at the end of the day, Grand Vintage, what means to Pere Ventura, or what wants to show to the Penedès region, is that if we take things very seriously and we work very hard, we really are capable of elaborating the best sparkling wines of the world. And this is really what Grand Vintage teaches us, and where Pere Ventura wants to be, no? And envisions itself in the future.
Well, you almost answered my last question, but I just thought you're so young and seemingly so knowledgeable. Looking ahead, if you look ahead for the next 20 or 30 years at the company, what will be your goal and plans for the next generation? And will you change the philosophy or tweak it, or how will the company look in the next decades or two?
This is a good and deep question, Anthony. We may need one glass of wine to dig deeper in that. But it is true that the sector is facing challenges, and we are going to face them. But on the one hand, I think that we have to adapt and we have to listen to what the market will say in the next years, because if not, you are dead. You are outdated on the market needs. But on the other hand, I think we have to be strict enough in our principles to stick with them in the future in terms of quality. Excellence, no? Excellence in vineyard, excellence in the winery, excellence in the production area, excellence with the people that we work with. Because at the end of the day, if we only adapt to the very immediate needs of the consumer, every year we will be doing different things. And at the end of the day, in 5 or 10 or 20, 25 years that you were mentioning, no one will recognize Pere Ventura as a brand, because we would have been done a lot of things. So on the one hand, we want to listen to the consumer, but on the other hand, we want to be strict to our principles. And well, here, of course, the sector, and within the Penedès region, we have our own challenges. And to me, one big challenge that I would like to address, but not only me, just like we as a community, is being united within the local producers, because there has been some separation, some breaks within the region, and I can understand each one of the steps that everyone has taken. But at the end of the day, we have to think about how can we all together reach the point that we are very well identifiable by the consumer, each one of us having our own business model. No, ones they will be more focused on volume, the other ones will be more focused on value, but we all play in the same, let's say, chessboard. So we have to work together to really drive the future.
Pere, it's been fantastic talking to you today. You seem wise beyond your years, and we're really excited to see these wines go across Canada now, and maybe we'll see you in Canada at some point talking about these wines and presenting them to Canadians and North Americans in general. And hopefully we'll come and see you in Spain soon and check out Pere Ventura right on the ground and get into those vineyards.
I'm looking forward, Anthony. You know that our doors are always, and our arms are very open to you. And thank you so much for giving me the chance and giving us the chance to talk a little bit about our region, about our roots, the family, and the wonderful sparkling wines that we elaborate.
Our pleasure. Thanks for joining us on Gismondi on Wine.